So here I have from my left here, George Miner, who's the Chief Executive and Co-founder of Shamba Records Limited. Wayne Cook, Managing Director of Fresh Del Monte, Kenya, and Julius Nganga, who is the Senior Director for East and Southern Africa of the Rainforest Alliance. And could I just start with you, George, and could you just tell me a little bit about what regenerative agriculture means and what it looks like from the perspective of your business?
Okay, thank you so much, John. My name is George Mena, and I'm the CEO and the founder of Shamba Records. So to us as a company, regenerative agriculture means being able now to help the farmers not only now do farming to increase their yields, but to do sustainable farming. And one of the ways that we guide the farmers on doing it is to be able now to help them understand. For example, if they're growing perennial crops, such as coffee, which has been grown maybe for 30 or 40 years, then the soil have been fully, degraded, and then the nutrients have gone really down. So for us as a company, we advocate for farmers to be able to do mixed farming, to practice also crop rotation. So like on mixed farming, we're advocating for farmers to be able to adopt agroforestry. So agroforestry is where they can be able now to do and plant fruit trees. And these fruit trees, they can be able to enable or form a cover for other crops that are down there. And besides that, it's able now to improve also the biodiversity, as well as to improve also the soil nutrients and soil fertility level. So the whole regenerative agriculture is not just doing the production for the purposes of increasing the yields. It's about now creating an ecosystem whereby the soil is quite very healthy and can be able now to have more nutrients into it.
And sorry if this is a noddy question, but why weren't they doing this already?
The reason why they were not doing this is because if you look like Kenya and other East African countries, they are known to grow some certain crops. They're known to grow coffee, tea. So they didn't do a lot of mixed farming. And if you don't do mixed farming, then if you grow for one particular coffee for a longer time, then you exhaust the soil, fertility levels. So you need also to feed the soil and for the soil to become very healthy. So you need to practice more mixed farming, because what we have seen, for example, like in coffee, and due to climate change, we have seen also a reduction in terms of the yields by 14%. So even these farmers are noticing, so if they don't do mixed farming, then they're going to keep on losing. They're going to also to experience low yields as well as low quality of yields as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Wayne, for a company like yours, I mean, what's the relationship between this form of agriculture we're talking about, regenerative agriculture, and the yields that you need to do for your bottom line?
No, for us, it's, having a sustainable farm is critical, because, what is sustainability? It means leaving the land in the same condition you found it in, or even better. And, Del Monte has been in Kenya for the last 60 years, and we've been farming on the same land, turning it over year after year, cycle after cycle. And we found that eventually you need to give something back to the land. There's been a practice a global practice that, you plant your seeds. I don't know if everybody knows, but it takes about 3.5 years to get 2 fruits from one pineapple plant. So that is your cycle. And then after the cycle, you knock down the plants. You let it knock down means just cutting the plants and leaving it on the field. It dries, and then you burn it, believe it or not. So this has been the normal practice for many, many years, and it's still going on now. And due to us changing our strategy and becoming more sustainable, caring more for the planet, the environment, we actually stopped burning the crops. Now we're going in and we actually pulling the plants individually out, one at a time, and using a huge amount of labor. And this is actually costing us millions of dollars as well. But, sustainability doesn't need to be a loss maker or increase your costs. You can actually have a return from that investment. So, taking the plant out of the ground manually, drying it, and then composting it and putting it back into that field, we're finding that we can now turn the field over quicker. So our fallow period is on average about 2 months shorter. So we have better land utilization. We have much healthier soil. We find that the soil is able to retain moisture content even better. There's more microorganisms. So,
Well, that was a bit unfair, I think. I thought there had not been load shedding for 200 days, and then
I must say, South Africa is worse than Kenya in
Is it?
terms of power. I was almost okay, still not working. I don't know if I can just speak a bit louder. So also you have, we found that, regenerating the soils using compost, there's more microorganisms growing in the soil. So overall, you're getting a much better benefit. So even though it's costing a lot of money to manually get people to come and pull the plants out, move those plants from one field to a composting area, move it back, it really costs a lot of money, but the return is there through the savings that you achieve. And we're very much pioneering this process now. I think Africa is the first. We have operations in Costa Rica, and I know that we are progressive here in Africa. So bottom line is sustainability doesn't need to cost you money. You can actually make money from it and still improve the planet, the people around you. And
Julius, I want to come to you in a second, but just on that, one of the things I've always been fascinated in is why African farms have been relatively less productive than those in other parts of the world, which has had a huge kind of knock-on impact on the development of the continent more broadly. What do you think this means? What do you think this kind of push to more sustainable agriculture, if indeed it will involve kind of higher amounts of labor, greater costs in a certain way, what effect will that have on agricultural productivity writ large? Is it going to be a net positive or net negative? What do you think?
Thank you for that.
You can take that, Julie. Okay, you take it.
this is not working.
Okay. Thank you for that question. I think and first, we as Rainforest Alliance has been in existence for over 3 decades now. We work to create a more sustainable world by protecting nature, but also improving the lives of farmers and forest communities. I think the transition we are looking for toward regenerative agriculture has to have a strong business case. So it's not only about access to markets, and especially now that markets like European Unions are enacting new laws, such as the European Union Deforestation-Free Regulation, and also the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. Also about market positioning, because the markets for regenerative agriculture products are growing, but also is about de-risking the supply chain. And therefore, like my colleague here have said, agriculture has contributed, to greenhouse gas emissions, 25% of global greenhouse gas emission are coming from agriculture. But then agriculture can be a force of good, to move from degrading practices, extractive practices to more healing. And you're looking at the soils, and soils is the most important factor of production. So how do we heal the soils? By ensuring that we take care of the soils, and this will lead to more productivity. I think Africa has lagged behind in terms of embracing this transition. Yeah, if I compare Africa, we work in Kenya, we work in Ghana around landscapes, and we deal with the key commodities, coffee, cocoa, tea, and others. If you compare Africa to countries like Vietnam, Brazil, I think they embrace these transitions, science-driven transitions better than Africa. I think now it's our time to do that. But also, it's also because we meet or we are faced by very unique challenges, especially for other countries where we have large number of smallholder farmers. So if you have to work with a large number of smallholder farmers, then it means you have to aggregate them. Yeah. So I feel like it's easier to work with large plantation rather than.
So would it be better if all these smallholders sold up to Del Monte?
I don't think so. Basically, because all of us have to thrive. Yeah, smallholder farmers have to thrive. Del Monte and other plantations have to thrive. We as Rainforest Alliance work with both, but the approach is slightly different, right? And smallholder farmers are more positioned as quality producers. Like if you compare coffee, coffee from Africa, whether you consider Ethiopia, Kenya, it's quite expensive because of the way we harvest it, we had pick, we process it, and it can sell to those niche markets that discern this as a high quality product. So I think it's a question of positioning, but also we must be aware that everyone, the farmer, the companies, all want to make some profits.
And George, can you just talk a little bit about scale? Because obviously you're providing data to a wide variety of farmers, presumably different scale. I mean, how much can just the provision of better information overcome some of these challenges that smallholder farmers face? I mean, it seems like it's a pretty difficult job at the best of times, and now you throw onto that high commodity prices, high fertilizer prices, and of course the impacts of climate change as well. I mean, how realistic is it to expect your average smallholder farmer to drive some of these practices that we're talking about?
Yeah, thank you, John. That's a very interesting question. And for us as Shamba Records what we're trying to do is to be able now to encourage more data-driven farming, not only on a large-scale level, but even on a smallholder farmer level. And the way we have been able to do it is to be able now to deliver solutions that are very low touch. What I mean by low touch is that they can be able to be accessed by the farmer by dialing even a USSD code, as well as even just maybe sending an SMS. And one of the ways we have tried also to advocate for data-driven farming is just by coming up with tools such as a crop calendar. And a crop calendar is able now to guide the farmer based on the region, based on the crop that they're growing, based on the season that they're practicing. So, and you find with the crop calendar, the farmer, they'll be able to know when it's the window period to be able now to till their land, to be able to apply the farm inputs, to be able to apply maybe the fertilizer, to be able now to do the harvesting. So in this case, we're helping the farmer to be able to optimize their production, even at a smallholder level. And we're doing this by localizing also the solution that can be able now to help the farmer do not only do production, but do more data-driven production. And one of the best ways to be able now to scale this is to be able now to go down to the farmer level, localize the solution, make sure the farmer has an interface that they can easily understand, that they can easily communicate with, And that way you can be able now to push, or you can be able now to influence the farmer to be able now to practice regenerative agriculture. Again, John, as you said, it's difficult, but we have seen the dangers is that they're at a larger scale, that they can even affect the farmer yields as well as incomes. So most of the farmers are slowly adopting, knowing that, okay, if I follow this crop calendar, I'll know when to irrigate, I'll know when to do the fertilizer, I'll know when to do mixed farming. So it's slowly being adopted because they know if they don't adopt it, then there's going to be more dangers in terms of low yields and then also the quality of the yields. Yeah.
Wayne, can I ask you this question from the floor, which is related to your work on composting, carbon sequestration? Some skepticism here about the way that composting can create methane, a greenhouse gas. I mean, how do you assess the impact of the practices you're using on greenhouse gas emissions and the kind of the net carbon balance that your operations come to?
Yeah, no, I saw the question and a very good one. I think if you look at the sheer volume that we are trying to turn over in any year, the biomass that we're talking about is about 270,000 tons. So what we're trying to do is, if we had to turn that through biochar to make some sort of a compost, that would require a lot of investment, big equipment. So what we're trying to look at is trying to turn that material as quickly as possible into a compost and then straight back into the land without having an impact on the environment and the greenhouse gases. So we're looking at methods to see how quickly it can be done without having that impact. Measuring it, we still need to try and see how we can measure the impact, but I think the speed that we will do it in is important, and we want to turn the land over as quickly as possible. So we can't have a biomass composting for more than 2 months.
And Julius, just briefly as we wrap up, you mentioned before that the impact of some of the regulations that the EU and other international markets have placed upon farmers, and presumably the Rainforest Alliance has a role in signaling to those markets that a product meets a certain standard. Can you just talk a little bit about whether the EU in particular, through what it's doing, is kind of helping or hindering this transition that you wish to see?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I think these new laws, like European Union Deforestation Regulation, is a very good law. I think it's very well intended, and it's going to help us address the challenges of deforestation, and especially because, like I said, agriculture is deforestation, and therefore it's good to have these laws, especially as we go on to fight deforestation and climate change. But the risk is if we don't support smallholder farmers, then these laws will become a barrier to market. And this is what we need to address, especially because already smallholder farmers are struggling with fluctuation of prices and all that. And now for smallholder farmers to support the companies who buy from them to comply, they need to provide data. And I see that now farmers are not only having a produce, but also they have this data asset now that they need to add to the produce they grow. And therefore, the question is then, how can companies work with farmers to support them to equitably share the burden of complying with this law. So this is an area that needs to be looked at and to ensure the farmer is not left behind to carry the whole burden alone.
Making sure the farmer's not left behind is a great sentiment on which to finish. Gentlemen, apologies for some of the technical difficulties, but thank you very much for sharing your insights. And please, can we have a round of applause for our panelists?